About macroeconomic conditions, let's talk about the world. What's going on right now in the world? It's getting a little bit out of hand. The sky is falling. The sky is falling. The sky is falling. Is it falling? I don't know, but the markets are definitely falling. What would you say about that, Johnny?
Yeah, it's looking pretty bleak out there. There's a lot of sentiment right now that is really bearish. You know, usually the contrarian thinking says that if sentiment is bearish, you want to do the opposite, but it may not be that case in all types of environments like right now.
Yeah, sometimes it's just really so bad that it's bearish, and then the sentiment to get from that is just that it's still bearish. Sometimes it's just bad, man.
This whole year has just been like just bearish the whole time, feels like.
Yeah, well, it's for good reason, right? High inflation, there's a lot of things going on. But before we get started, guys, if you guys don't know who I am, I'm an internet entrepreneur. I started off making multiple businesses, but the one that really set me apart was my cryptocurrency business. We teach people fundamental analysis, technical analysis, teach people how to trade, as well as market themselves for cash flow through fundamental secrets. I'm also the owner of coinpix.io, which is a data and analytics website. I also owned a fund. I don't want to call it a hedge fund because it's high risk, but we do all types of things in the financial world. And right here, we have my lead consultant, Johnny. Go ahead and introduce yourself, man. Tell them who you are.
What's up, everyone? My name is Johnny. I've been working for Alex for a little over 18 months now, and he's kind of just brought me onto the ropes here and kind of taught me about how everything in cryptocurrency works. Kind of got started in 2017 working with my other desk job before working for Alex, and crypto has kind of been my passion as far as an asset class go. But since I've been working for him, I've been exposing myself to others, kind of trying to see how the world actually works as far as monetary policy goes and fiscal policy. And Alex, as well as the rest of our teammates over at Fundamental Secrets, have really just kind of brought together being able to hedge ourselves to be able to really position for this huge opportunity that's going to happen in the next 6 to 12 months, probably, with all these altcoins and Bitcoin, as well as equities and other things pretty much having cheap prices.
Yeah, I think a lot of people confuse what I do because we talk a lot about cryptocurrency. They're like, oh, there's these crypto guys. They don't know what they're talking about. But the truth is the learning curve in crypto is probably 10 times worse than any financial market, in my personal opinion. And the reason why I say that is because you pretty much have to learn all other financial markets to understand cryptocurrency and to understand why it's an innovative technology. So yeah, we talk about crypto most of the time, but it's not because we don't know about stock market or anything else. It's mostly because the crypto is the most lucrative opportunity there is, in the world right now. In our personal opinion, people are scared of volatility, but if you actually learn finance and you're actually in it 24/7, then volatility is actually a good thing. It gives you more room for error, right? More room for longs and shorts and dollar cost averaging and really setting yourself up for not like a 12% return a year, but maybe like a 1,200% return a year, right? Like
life-changing.
Yeah, right. Like, there's this whole thing of get rich quick. And although, some people do get rich quick, like with the lottery or making a lot of money very fast, I think in my head, when I hear get rich quick, I think the most legit way is probably getting rich in maybe 3 to 4 years, which can happen.
I mean, some people wait 30 to 40 years.
It's true. That's what I'm saying. So like, traditional finance, traditional methods of getting rich, like he said, you bust your butt, work your job, work your way up in a 9 to 5, trying to make a significant salary and then put it away for someone else to invest it for you to get 12% APY compounded. And then hopefully it turns into $1 million by the time you're age 50, 60. For me, getting rich quick in this new day and age with Web 3.0 is the Bitcoin cycle. Every 4 years or so, Bitcoin goes parabolic and it takes up altcoins with it. I've been a part of multiple 100Xs. I've been able to 100X my money in multiple different ways. I've also been a part of scams that I just didn't know was a scam and I lost all my money. But that comes with it. And, that's how I set myself apart from really becoming a successful entrepreneur is, building the cash flow mechanisms. But also, this is where a lot of entrepreneurs miss. I know too many entrepreneurs that do not know how to invest. And it's actually sad that you don't know where to put your money. You don't know how to multiply your money. All you know how to do is grow it through your business. And I think even to a certain extent, the investments of your business and the cash flow of your business are one and the same. And that's technically what I do. Today we're going to be talking about the macroeconomic environment. Did you have anything to add to that?
I mean, not really. I haven't been like a sole entrepreneur where I've had my own business or ran it. But, being an employee to Alex's, he's kind of put me on that front lines.
He's an entrepreneur. He didn't want to say it, but he is. He basically, I throw him in the wilderness like an entrepreneur.
Yeah. I mean, getting out of my comfort zone has been probably the biggest thing, like being on, TikTok, social media, as well as like with our CoinPix, YouTube, getting in front of a camera. That's one thing that I think, like, no matter what business you go into, like even if you're someone who does like interior design, right? You're going to have a presence on social media at some point, because that's like the way that everything is going. Yeah. So for me, that revolution was a little bit hard because, I'm kind of a shy guy. So, getting out of my shell and kind of being comfortable in front of a camera, I mean, that's going to help me out way down the road for, anything in the future that's going to come down.
Yeah. I mean, social media is like it's just a square. It's like a public square. It's like a digital public square. Like back in the day, they would go to like, the shopping markets and somebody would be like stand on a rock and like be like, yeah, buy my thing, right?
Yeah.
They just stand on a rock. And now like we have a digital solution for that. So people are like, oh, I'm not a social media guy. It's like, no, everybody's a social media guy. Are you a public person? Do you talk to people? Do you want to make friends? Do you want to network? Well, you are a social media guy. That is what you need to do. So I don't care what entrepreneur is watching this. There's a lot of them that are scared to become famous for whatever reason, because they think that their competitor is going to have like a strategic advantage on them or something like that. I think that's ridiculous, and you will get left behind, because social media doesn't take a week, it doesn't take a month, it takes years to build and craft. So get started now. I don't care how much money you're making. I really don't care, even if you're a billionaire. Social media is where it's at, in my personal opinion. But yeah, we're talking a lot about some other stuff. Yeah, I throw a lot at Johnny here, and he does a lot. But let's jump into some of the macro environment. I'm going to say a couple things I see, and then maybe you can comment on that, and then you can jump into a couple of things you see,
yeah, and
then I'll try to comment on that too. So first, I think the biggest topic by far is inflation. Now, I know it's a corny thing now. It's basically a buzzword at this point, but it's real and people actually know about it. So if you go to Google Trends, I always refer to this metric, because it really shows how many people are interested in inflation. But you could literally go to Google Trends, type in inflation, and you can see a massive spike in interest on inflation. So if you don't know what inflation is, I'll give you a baby dumbed down version of it. Essentially, I always explain it like a cup of water. There's 2 cups of water. One of them has like 10 tablespoons of iced tea, like really tasty, or let's call it Kool-Aid, right? They have 10 tablespoons of Kool-Aid. The other one has 2 tablespoons of Kool-Aid, right? So basically how it works is that's like kind of like your money. There's $1 on both of them. $1 is worth more than the other dollar. So essentially, when you pour water into the 10 tablespoons, it gets diluted and it becomes less sweet, right? It becomes more like water. So in this case, what I'm trying to explain is the Federal Reserve printing money to bail out entities, big entities, which I'm not going to comment on that. Like sometimes they have to do it, right? Like it's just, or the economy is going to blow up. So I'm not going to comment on that. But the effect of money being printed, the stimulus in the economy, corporate buybacks, rate hikes, all of these things, this effect dilutes the value of the United States dollar. But it's not anything new. It's been happening for like 50 to 100 years. It happened to every fiat currency on planet Earth. It's not like inherently evil. Like every government currency does this. But I am trying to explain that your dollar in your bank account is becoming less valuable. Meaning, if you got $1,000, it's not worth $1,000 anymore. Inflation is what, at 6% right? 7%?
Right now it's like 8.3.
So technically, your $1,000 is worth what? $992. You lost $8. Now it doesn't seem like a lot, but that's year after year.
Well, that's like compared to the CPI. In different industries, it might be even more, right? Because we saw like in the gas pump, it went up 50%, right? So your $1 got you half as much gas. Just because in that one sector, it went up by 50%. As a whole, when looking at inflation as a whole, the CPI index, your purchasing power is decreased by 8.1%, which doesn't sound like a lot, but it is.
Yeah, and honestly, what I tell people too is like sometimes it's not about you, right? Sometimes it's analyzing the effects and the entire market. So maybe, to you that have $10K in a bank account, it's not a lot. Like it's whatever, right? But what about somebody that has $10 billion? That's a significant amount of money, and it freaks them out, right? So it freaks them out to lose millions of dollars in this uncontrollable variable, and they make moves. And when they make moves, all of you are affected. So just definitely looking at what's going on. And not only that, but it can get out of control. Like inflation can turn into hyperinflation very quick. And it can turn from 8% to 25%. Right? You're losing 25%. Now you're like, okay, well, my paycheck's 25% less. You make $50K a year, subtract 25% and subtract taxes at the same time and try to live off that. Your standard of life dropped by 1/4, right? And that's significant. That's like, maybe I can't feed my family because I can't cut off this Netflix addiction or something like that, right?
Well, yeah. I mean, you see what's happening in Europe. I mean, I'm praying for them right now because they are going through almost a hyperinflation scenario. I mean, you saw the news the other day where the central bank of England had to basically go in and halt, their bond market from collapsing on itself. And it exposed a bunch of like pension funds that were like insolvent, all this really bad stuff that were like, domino effects. But it's like these central banks are causing the problem and then they're coming in to bail out their own issues that stem from them.
Yeah, it's basically Band-Aid solutions, like just to make it all like all the mumbo jumbo, like simple for you guys. Essentially what's happening is somebody has like a disease and then they get like a pill to make them feel better for like maybe the next like 3 months.
Yeah.
And they're taking these pills and then eventually disease gets worse. But the time horizons are way worse, like longer. So like, they could stimulate the economy like they always have in the next 3 to 5 years or whatever. Decrease the spending and lower inflation. Mm-hmm. They could like remedy it with some short-term quick fix solution. And then us go back to normal again with all out printing, crazy madness, crazy stock market. But I do think eventually the house of cards, I don't know when, it could be 10 years, 20 years, 30 years, 50 years.
That's the big question.
Yeah, I don't like, maybe it does work forever, right? That's kind of like the promise of the Federal Reserve is this new kind of artificial monetary system that it's just going to work forever. Maybe it does. Maybe it does.
Well, I know like one thing that we study in the Fundamental Secrets, and we have another coach, his name is Garfinkel. You'll probably see him a little bit more on our CoinPix channel doing some videos. But we follow like a lot of other people who we listen to who are way deeper in the macro space. Because again, we're trying to, basically shift our capital wherever it's going to be, appreciating or, kind of being like not like a hedge, but like trying to make sure that we're not losing a bunch. Not having all of our money like into Bitcoin if it goes down 60% in 1 year type of thing.
Yeah.
But as far as, some of these other models that are out there with like a quad model, like I know Keith McCullough over at Hedgeye, he has his quad model, but essentially, and a lot of people, have done this type of analysis themselves, but if you take a look at economies that are either in a stage of growth or inflation and, variations of those two metrics, you can kind of get a good feel of, the broader cycles. And it just happens to be, which is, I don't know if like Bitcoin was programmed this way, but Bitcoin like perfectly on its 4-year halving cycle, like follows these crazy swings with like growth and inflation.
With a traditional, I saw that with the 10-year yield bond. So if you ask me, I think there was their own cycle. It was its own cycle. And then I think Satoshi Nakamoto timed it. He timed it and then it kind of became like cross-correlated.
Yeah.
And then, okay, so there's a lot. So let's explain it.
We got time.
Yeah, we got a lot of time. Go ahead and explain it as simply as you possibly can.
As far as
of what you said, the correlation to traditional finance and the swings of traditional finance to Bitcoin.
Yeah, so essentially you have like this is credit to Keith McCullough over at Hedgeye as well as other people who do this. This is not a product of Fundamental Secrets at all. But essentially the concept is that you have the 4 quadrants of whether an economy is growing and getting inflated, or the other effect, which is slowing down and it's experiencing disinflation, which is kind of where we're at now. And then you can have the other variations too. But when Bitcoin does the best, you're starting from like a smaller inflation number going up. So a lot of people say inflation or Bitcoin wasn't an inflation hedge, but technically during the period of when it went from like 1.5% CPI to like 6% CPI, Bitcoin went from 10K to 60K. So in that part, it was an inflation hedge. But the only thing is because it's such a riskier asset class right now, it's being affected by the growth aspect of it. So like when growth is slowing, people are like, oh my gosh, I'd rather pay my bills right now than invest in Bitcoin. And that's kind of like what's going on. You're just seeing a liquidity drain.
Okay. Yeah, so I meant something different, and I'm going to take full credit for this because I think I was the only one that's talking about this. So if you look at the 10-year yield, right, specifically the yield, okay, that's what I was talking about.
Okay.
You were talking about something different.
All right.
Basically, when it comes down, right, so when people start buying bonds, Bitcoin typically doesn't do well. So like when it's going up and people are like scared of the United States. So just to give you a background, a yield on a bond, if it goes up, it means no one's buying it. Right. So if the yield increases, that means no one's buying it. When it goes down, that means there's a lot of people buying it. So if you look at Bitcoin and you relate them, the peaks and the troughs of the 10-year yield correlate really, really crazy with Bitcoin. And so when it goes up and people are not buying, Bitcoin typically does bad. And then when it starts to come down, right, and it gets somewhere in the halfway, Bitcoin starts to rally. So when you see the yield, essentially, people are starting to buy 10-year bonds again. It's almost like they're anticipating that risk on assets are going to come back.
Right, yeah.
So when people start buying the 10-year yield, and all right, well, the United States government's good. I want to get my 4% or 3% or whatever the case is. I want to buy it. Billionaires start hopping into the IOU, the bonds, right? They hop in. It's almost like midway. They're like, okay, if everybody's getting confidence in the United States government, they're going to turn the spending on eventually, and then risk on assets. I don't know about stocks. I know about Bitcoin. Bitcoin in general starts to do well. So it was really weird, but I have a chart that I talk about on my YouTube channel where it shows the Bitcoin halving events and the 10-year yield, and it just lines up like perfect. It's almost like Bitcoin was created for that purpose. You know?
Oh wow, yeah. I wasn't thinking about the 10-year yield, but that is true. I mean, people like who have large businesses, like huge corporations like Jeff Bezos over at Amazon, like they still have like dollars like on their payroll and stuff.
Yep.
And what happens is people in these like crunch times that we're experiencing right now, they're starving for yield. And it's like, where do I put my money in order to compete with this inflation that's going on? Yeah. Like the super powerful, rich corporations, they're still having this battle too. Inflation affects everybody.
Yeah. And it affects everybody. I mean, I don't really think about buying a 10-year yield like a bond myself, but again, like I said, you got to think about what the billionaires are doing, because if they move the market, it's basically where they go. You have to follow them to a certain extent. You don't have to follow them by buying it like a bond. But if they're not buying bonds, then they're kind of scared of what's going on in the United States government, and you can short the market. So I want to talk about, like right now, let's switch the subject up a little bit. I know there's a lot of verbiage that people don't understand. It's okay. We have so many videos that break it down, Barney style, on my YouTube channel that you can watch that will even show the charts. So definitely reference those. But I do want to talk about how are we able to make money with understanding macro conditions? Because it's pretty clear. It wasn't clear like maybe a year ago. Like it was kind of like, it was like back and forth. But then it got to a point like maybe 6 months, 8 months ago where we were like, all right, well, this is clear. And then I wish I would have been more aggressive on the shorts. And shorts, what I mean is shorting a market, right? Betting that the price is going to go down.
Yeah.
But right now we're pretty aggressive on that, and we're making money off of it. So why don't you explain, Johnny, how do you make money off of like understanding macroeconomic conditions?
Well, when I think of macroeconomic conditions, I just think about like which asset classes can I park my capital in that I'm not using for like, business investments, other things, because you just don't want money sitting in a bank account. In fact, if you have money in a commercial bank, notice that it's only meant for like retail people because it's only FDIC insured up to $250,000. But if, people who have lots of money, they're not just going to put, $1 million in a bank account because only a quarter of that is secured by the government. Right. And so what people do is they hire, people on Wall Street, they hire, money managers to basically trust them that they know the macroeconomics so that they can shift their money into areas where it's going to be diversified or able to just be okay with whatever market conditions are out there. But the thing is that a lot of these people get lazy and, they go into that 60-40, classic portfolio management style where it's like 60%, stocks, 40% bonds. And then how's that been doing this year?
You're getting wrecked
this year. So it doesn't work in all environments. And so if you study and you're not lazy on the macroeconomics, you can really position yourself better because as of 2022, the the best asset class to have it is in dollars. And that's not really like what you would think about because inflation is so high.
Yep.
But it's still better than putting, your money into some assets that have gone down like 60%.
Yeah, I mean, so basically, if you were to break it down, what macroeconomics is, because people don't really understand it, it's all fiscal and monetary policy in the United States, essentially. So the United States is the most powerful by money. So basically, what they do with fiscal and monetary policy changes laws. It changes the economies of other countries. It changes pretty much everything. They're kind of like, how do I explain? They're like the king, right? And the king's like, no, decrease spending. Right, and then it affects pretty much every variable on planet Earth because they do have the world reserve currency that is the USD.
Yep.
So essentially, it even controls to a certain extent policy, regular policy and laws. Like it's in my personal opinion, kind of the bedrock of everything because you could make a law and it'd be like, okay, you can't, go out, walk outside, right? But presidents will find a way to break it if they need to, right? And how do they break it? They usually break it with some type of justification of money, right? So money is kind of like the top of the pyramid, in my personal opinion. And whoever decides what happens to the money is, in my personal opinion, like the king of the earth, basically. So we have the Federal Reserve, which is the king of the earth, and they make these decisions that you can actually maneuver and follow them, or you could see through what they're doing. Like, we have meetings all the time in Fundamental Secrets where we're watching the Federal Reserve meeting and we're like all laughing and stuff like, because it's like a puppet. It's like we all know what's going on with the inflation. We all know what he's kind of doing. And in some cases, he's trying to cover himself. So you go, he's like press release, PR, if you don't know what that means, is basically like if there's a bomb, there's like a nice way to say that there's a bomb, right? So there's like a bomb that exploded and there's like 1,000 people that died. Well, this bomb that sparked a couple people's lives at risk, like you could say it very nice, right? So when you see, we watch the Federal Reserve meeting, it's like he's almost like there's a bomb and he's trying to like cover up for it, and that is inflation, right? Yeah. So we're watching it and we're like, all right, this guy's full of it, right? And then we see his actions, and then we allocate capital accordingly. So Aaron was the first person to scream because he's an expert in macroeconomics. He was like, "Yo, Alex," he even changed my mind. He was like, "Yo, Alex, it's going into hawkish Fed policies. They're going to decrease spending. They're going to stop the money printer. He said they're going to stop printing money. It's going to get very tight for big corporations, for people with billions of dollars." And this was like 7-8 months ago. It's going to get really tight. I remember the Q&A too. And I was so against it. I was like, Bitcoin's going to 100K. And he's like, "Nope, Alex," he saved me. He's like, "No, Alex, it's not going to happen because all risk on assets, anything tied to risk is going to get destroyed. Because again, they're decreasing spending. They're not putting more money into the economy, and essentially like they're feeding it less gas, right? They're feeding it less gas to remedy inflation. So he said that, and then everything started tanking, bro. The price of Bitcoin, the price of stocks, like everything. And at the time for me, I was like, oh man, like it sucks. But now that we recognize the general direction, to make money in this market, you can make money in both directions. Let me say it again. You can make money in both directions. You can make money sideways. You can make money when the market's going down. And obviously you can make money when the market's going up. People don't recognize this, but if you have a good risk management, you have discipline, and you have a good strategy, you know what you're talking about, you can make money in both directions. So although the sky is falling, like we were saying in the beginning of the video, and everybody's going crazy right now, it doesn't really matter for us. It's going to get harder, don't get me wrong, because you're not going to be perfect. But we have options to make money while the market goes down, okay? So if you put yourself in a situation to understand these variables, understand what the king's going to do, because they make it hard on purpose. There's all types of crazy madness, right? Oh my gosh. It's so hard. Like even to this day, I'm like, I probably don't even understand 30% of macroeconomics, right? It's a whole thing. You can go to college for it. You can get a doctorate in macroeconomics, okay? But I would say if you know like a good amount, you can make investment decisions that would benefit you for the long run. But this is where that discipline comes into play and understanding all those variables. And I think I would have never known macroeconomics if I got into stocks. I'm gonna be real. I probably went straight technical analysis like most people, or like Forex. I would have went straight technical analysis. But the fact that I'm in cryptocurrency and the fact that all of these world reserve currencies and all of these things affect Bitcoin so closely, it's almost like it forced me into understanding it. And that's what I meant by earlier. I was like, yo, crypto guys know a lot more because they have to kind of learn everything. Bitcoin's highly affected by the Federal Reserve. It's everything.
Well, too, like because because macroeconomics is basically the world economy as a whole, right? And then microeconomics is like looking at that specific sector, whether that's like a, cryptocurrency, or
a business,
whether that's like a, like tech stocks, or whether that's, something else. That's like microeconomics, but macro is looking at it as a whole.
Yep.
And when you look at like what makes like a country wealthy, every country has 4 sectors of, their entire GDP, right? You have like the primary sector, which is like those businesses that actually extract raw material out of the ground, or like, farming or like fishing to actually like get the raw material. And then you have secondary markets, which are, taking those raw materials and actually making them into products that people can like consume, or things that we use. And then the third, which most people think about, that's like services. So like the grocery store, selling you that fish that was caught, or, like Amazon, all these other, businesses that we buy products from. That's like the third. And then the fourth is like education and things like that. And what's interesting is like Bitcoin, like where do you put it in those 4 sectors? Because technically it's digitally mined. So you can almost put that in the primary, but it's also in the third because it's like tech. So it's kind of like this weird thing where it's in a bunch of different sectors.
It's in the metaverse, bro.
Yeah. It's in the metaverse.
It's in a different dimension.
It's in a different dimension, but that's like one interesting thing. But yeah, I mean, so we're kind of taking a look at all these different sectors and seeing how, like, what relationship that they have with each other. And that's like really like what macroeconomics is.
Exactly. And then there's some that there's like huge decisions. Like if you could just understand this one thing, watching or listening to this podcast, just please at least Google search hawkish and dovish federal policy. Mm-hmm. Hawkish and dovish. That's all you have to understand. And if you want me to give you kind of a simple breakdown, hawkish is decreasing or non-stimulation against the market. So they're not printing money, and then dovish is printing money. So, typically when they're printing money, there's a lot of businesses that flourish and make a lot of money because there's a lot more money in the market. And then the opposite for hawkish Fed policy. That's probably the best.
One thing that I've never asked you about before,
yeah.
Alex, is I don't know if you've researched this at all, but like what's called the wealth effect. Like basically how like the Federal Reserve can create an environment where people can like feel wealthy, even though compared to other things, they might be spending, similar amounts that they were 20 years ago because everything keeps getting inflated. But at some point, like people just feel like, oh my gosh, this is as much money that I've ever made before. And then basically that wealth effect just got taken out from under everyone's feet like this past year. Because like last year, in 2021, I was like, man, this year is good.
We were killing it.
And I think a lot of businesses felt like they were at the peak of that wealth effect too. Because you look at big corporations, they're all basically guidance down that they're not going to be able to like compete with last year's earnings. So they're all preparing the market for lower earnings this year. So it seems like individuals as well as businesses are experiencing this like negative wealth effect. I keep seeing that as like a buzzword too everywhere now.
Yeah, I haven't like specifically looked into wealth effect, but I do know that wealth is a ratio. Wealth is a ratio between how much something costs and how much money you have. It's not the number in your bank account.
Right.
So that's basically what you're explaining is, so like let's say you have I'm looking at a camera, right? And a camera is $2,000. If you got 10 grand in your bank account, then yeah, you can afford that camera, right? Because you have 5 times the amount of money. But if the camera goes up to $5,000, you still got 10K, and it just got artificially increased. The same camera quality, the same lens, the same everything. You get the same package, but it costs $5,000 now. Then you don't really feel as wealthy anymore, right? So the numbers, they play with that ratio to kind of. Yeah. I don't think they purposely dupe people, but the point is that they're trying to increase the quality of life. They want it. That's the whole point of macroeconomics, the Federal Reserve in the first place, is that they're trying to maintain a good quality of life for a person. That's literally the whole point. That's the whole point of money. The whole point of money is to distribute, resources so that everybody can have enough resources, even though obviously that's not how it works the entire time. But the point is that, they can increase the amount of money you have. So when they go into dovish Fed policy, they start printing like crazy, and maybe your job gives you a raise, right? Or maybe you make more money in your business because
party on.
Yeah, you go crazy, and then you start wilding out, and you start going to the club, spending money you don't have, even though you think you have it because your bank account looks that way, and then boom, you get hit, and then the cost of goods go up. You never saved any money, And that money that you had is now worth significantly less because gas is super expensive and everything's super expensive and the cameras are super expensive. So again, wealth is not a number in your bank account. Wealth is a ratio between the cost of things versus how much money in your bank account. That's the ratio, right? And so what's the best ratio? The best ratio is to have the most number in your account and the cost of things to go down. That's the best ratio. You want cheap things and a lot of money, right? But sometimes it goes like this, and they start playing with it. And then sometimes it even inverts. And the cost of goods go up exponentially, and then people are not making money, which is kind of what's happening right now.
Yeah, I'll tell you what, like a year ago when I was looking at my my Coinbase account, I was like, man, it was good to wake up to that. I felt wealthy.
Bro.
Not like that anymore, though.
Yeah, I was hitting the casino with meme coins, man. I remember making $100K in like literally 3 days. Remember that in office? Do you remember that?
There's a lot of times in the office where, Alex was just like, all right, guys, Shiba NFTs.
Oh, man.
We got our editors where they're just like, all right, let's buy it.
Yeah, those tanked. I don't get everything right. But yeah, I remember.
Some of them did good.
Yeah, bro. Okay, so just to be clear, a lot of that hype came from the fact that I made $100K in 3 days off of Shiba Inu. So I'm like sitting here degen style. Everybody's working and I'm over here degen in my office, right? If you don't know, degen is like a degenerate, like a gambler, right? It's a joke. It's a financial joke. I'm not a gambler, okay? People are gonna be like, "Well, listen to this guy." But I'm over here like sweating, like, gotta find the next 100x altcoin, right? And then I saw this coin. It was literally a dog coin, bro. It's called Shiba Inu, bro. It's a dog. It's literally a meme. It's a joke. And I'm like, bro, there's no way anyone's buying this. Then I started doing some on-chain investigation. I started dissecting Etherscan and looking at very rich people to see if they're holding Shiba Inu. And I saw that there was a significant amount of whales, huge people. I'm talking about whales out of my class. I'm talking about 500 million, close to $1 billion that were holding a significant amount of Shiba Inu. I was like, what? I was like, all right, well, let's try it out. And I put, I remember I put $10,000 into Shiba Inu. And I happened to catch the exact timing. And the next day, it 10x'd. And I was just like,
oh my gosh.
Yeah, it was crazy. And then I started and I obviously cashed out. You're crazy, if you don't cash out in situations like that.
Yeah.
So I sold it. And then from there, for like the next 2 weeks, I was just full degen buying. Lost some, made some, lost some. But at the end of the day, I made a whole bunch of money off of that little meme coin cycle there. And it was a lot of fun. Cryptocurrency is a lot of fun, man. It's not complete gambling if you use good risk management. I would say that the difference between crypto, because they're both high risk, the difference between crypto and a casino is that a casino, they got cameras on you. They know your identity. They know how much you bet. They know every variable of your existence. Those cameras are dissecting you. They know your personality type. They go on your social medias. They know what ticks you. They know what makes you mad. I mean, if you don't think this happens, they have like a server room at the top with like 1,000 monitors, and they're literally dissecting every variable of your life. I know for a fact. I know someone that works at a casino. But in crypto, although it's high risk and there's a lot of gambling involved, there's no one to really, there is people that can monitor you, but it's so much harder. It's so much harder. So you can't get wrecked individually. So, and it's the same thing technically with the stock market. Like it's all gambling, right? It's all just risk to reward decision making.
Yeah.
But I like crypto more because there's just more volatility, man. There's more upside. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and like you said, like if you can understand macro and then trickle your decisions down to being in a highly volatile asset class like cryptocurrency, you can, just like a surfer, like if there's a big, 100-foot wave coming to shore, you have the people prepping, getting their, houses ready. And then you have people trying to flee the area. But you look at the wave and there's like a surfer, surfing that big wave, and he's having a good time surfing it. That's pretty volatile, but that surfer's having a good time because he knows that he's confident that he can surf that wave. So, I mean, it's kind of like, you got to become that surfer, but you can't, you have to start at macroeconomics and work your way down when making those types of decisions. And yeah, when Shiba and all that stuff was going good, I mean, that was when the money printer was still going on.
Yeah, we were a dovish Fed policy.
Yeah.
So it was not the same. It was the same with the stock market too. The stock market was mooning. Every stock was doing great, but the difference is that I was getting so much more returns because it was just a riskier environment. So that's why I love crypto. It's just risk. Okay, I want to explain this concept. This is a deep concept. So so someone asked me one time, he's like, all right, look, well, you play with crypto and it's risky and there's a lot of upside and there's a lot of downside. But what's the difference between that and leverage? Right? So let's say, for example, you play in the S&P 500, which is like the least risky risk there is, right? They don't see a lot of big moves. Like a devastating move is like a 20% drop. Like that would be like the end of the world, right?
right.
But like a Shiba Inu can drop 20% in 1 minute, like 10 minutes,
right?
And it'll come right back, right?
Yeah.
So S&P 500 is like kind of not that risky. It is, but not that risky. And then you put 5x leverage. So if you don't know what leverage is essentially you're allowed to use your capital in a better way. So if you had a 10K, you could put 5x leverage, and when you buy the asset, it technically buys it with $50,000 worth of purchasing power. But the problem with that is that you lose it 5 times as fast and you can get liquidated. Okay? So what does that mean? So if you have $10,000 in, to lose the 10,000, you technically have to go down 100% to lose $10,000, right? In crypto, you have to go down 100% to lose $10,000. But if you have 5x leverage, you only have to go down 20% and you lose all of your money, right? So
liquidated.
You get liquidated. So in the S&P 500, although it's hard to go down 20%, you lose. I don't like leverage. I only use leverage when there's no other choice, like when you have to bet on the downturn of the market. You can't buy a coin that makes you money in the downturn of the market.
Yeah, that's true.
There's no such thing. That'd be a cool project. Or you could buy a coin that inverts the price of something. That'd be crazy.
Inverse coin.
Don't take inverse. There is a coin I call it.
Yeah, don't watch that part. That's our idea. Sorry.
Don't take that part. But the point is that when you're leveraging, you have a chance of getting liquidated. When you're in crypto, there is no chance of getting liquidated, but you could go to zero with the coin. So when I bet, I buy coins that I know are going to work now and are going to work 10 years in the future. So if you want to hold that coin through the volatility, it will come back eventually. With leverage, once you get liquidated, the money's gone. You can't touch it. There's nothing you can't touch it, right? So I personally believe that if you want to get the best risk to reward and the best upside, something like crypto is perfect because you at least hold the coin. You hold the coin. There's no risk of getting liquidated and the upside's big. So it's just that little small difference of risk that can go so far. And people underestimate that. They underestimate that severely. And there's a reason why I got rich 2 different times in crypto. Not once, I got rich twice. First time, I bought Ethereum at $3 to $7. Second time, I went ham before the DeFi boom. And I got rich literally 2 different times in cryptocurrency. It's predictable. When someone does something once, it's like luck. But when someone does something twice and screams at the top of their lungs on their YouTube channel and tells everybody else to do it and forces their parents into it and forces their girlfriend into it, then that's not luck. They know something, right? So again, we're going on a full-on bear run, and I know we're supposed to be talking about macroeconomics, but I'm telling you right now.
I love these tangents.
Yeah, I got to go into the tangent, man, because I'm trying to get people rich. This is literally what I do for a living.
Yeah.
We're going to the bear run, and I'm going to be dollar cost averaging. Not now. Hear me out. Now's the shorting time. But eventually, we're going to reach a bottom. We're not there yet, but we will. And what we do, I'm going to be going all out Warrior Alex mode. And I'm going to be buying every single meme coin, BS coin that you guys thought were a scam. And it's going to go up, and I'm going to get ridiculous returns, 20, 30, 50x, dollar cost averaging strategy. So, yeah, I just want to put my 2 cents there. Go ahead.
Yeah, and if you're doubting what he's saying right now, you can actually go on Alex's YouTube back to 2019. He's talking about Cardano when it was like
2 cents.
Yeah, like 2 cents. He's talking about Uniswap when it was like
before it even it just came out.
Before all that stuff came out. You can go back and see like what coins Alex was talking about, and that's actually when I first started like getting back into crypto after I lost like 80% from the 2017 top. I mean, I didn't know what I was doing at all. Maybe some people experience that as well, and maybe they're just experiencing that now for the first time getting into crypto. Just know that don't get discouraged. Like, it's time to double down. This is like double down time.
Yeah, it's time to put on your savage cap.
Yeah,
right? Not at the top, but it's like, man, everybody says you got to do the exact opposite, but when it comes to it, they don't do it. They just don't do it. They get scared. They don't do it. They don't want to make money. I don't know, bro. I don't care. I think a lot of it has to do with cash flow too. Like, people just have they have insecurities because they make so little at their job. They save up for like 6 years and they have like, 10 grand. And it's like, bro, they don't want to lose that money because that's 6 years worth of work. So sometimes for you guys, like, Like it just depends on who's watching this. Like it's probably more of a cash flow problem. The reason why you're so scared to lose your money, it's probably a cash flow problem.
No, it's true. Cause like if you were getting it like, $100 grand a week, you'd be like, all right, what do I do with this stuff?
Exactly.
Let me buy a ape coin.
Yeah. And honestly, even if you had $6 grand and it took you 6 years to get that, just putting 1,000 into crypto can change your entire life.
Oh yeah.
Just 1,000.
100%.
I mean, my girl's account, I started with $2 grand and it's like at $40,000 right now. It's like, I'm about to pay off her student loans. I'm going to take that 40 and I cashed out too. So I'm going to take that 40K. I'm going to buy the dip and probably get another 5X off of that. So you can do the math for yourself, but it's definitely going to pay off her student loans and she's going to have money in her savings off of her not doing anything and allowing me to just throw it at the market. Right. So
what do you say to somebody who doesn't have time to like study macro or study crypto?
Well, that's just a ridiculous excuse. I hate people that say they don't have time to learn money because technically they're the exact same thing. It just doesn't make sense.
Time is money.
Time is, and I know it's a cliche like saying, but the way I explain it is very simple. You go to a job and you trade your hour for $1. So no, sir, you do have time to learn money because you're doing it, but you're not learning nothing. You're slaving away, flipping burgers or doing some manual labor task that you hate and not learning any other skill, right? So when someone says they don't have time to learn macroeconomics, it's just like, bro, like what? You're just going to let somebody manage you for the rest of your life. You're going to let somebody enslave you for the rest of your life because that's the slave mechanism. The slave mechanism is the controlling of people's time. If you haven't noticed, they control you at your job. They control your retirement. They control every variable of your time and money. But you don't have enough time to spend an hour or 2 hours a day learning macroeconomics. It's ridiculous. It's a bad excuse. And I'm not going to go down the route and say, hey, you can make time by not watching less Netflix. No, you could literally learn macroeconomics at your job. You can be a horrible human being, have every addiction on planet Earth, and still learn macroeconomics. You don't need to cut nothing off. You don't need to cut your girlfriend off. You don't need to even stop going to the club. You could be an alcoholic and still learn macroeconomics. Like, I hate going down this path of like forcing people to stop doing things just to learn money. Like, it's the most important variable of your life, if you haven't noticed. Not the most. God's the most important. But in a sense of the physical, material world, and in the non-spiritual world, money is the most important variable. It is. It just is.
No, yeah. I mean, if you're working a job where you're making, $50,000 a year, if you're not doing something to learn about money, how to improve your situation, then you're declaring like you are worth that amount of money to yourself, which you know that you're not. So why not actually pay yourself by actually turning that time into learning something that will eventually make you maybe even 3 times or 4 times the amount that you're actually making at your job right now. So
it's because they don't have faith. If they don't have, they rather have faith in their boss to give them a raise. They rather have faith in this random person that doesn't even care about you. They care about their own.
So sad, man.
It's sad, bro. They care about their own raise. You got a boss that's making $100K. He cares more about his raise than he does yours. Why would he give you a raise? It takes away money from the company. You go ask him for a raise. He's going to be incentivized to say no. I mean, there's bosses that are good. Okay. I'm not saying every boss is bad, but I'm telling you that they're incentivized to be like, no, because they know that it takes away money from the pool of money in the business and they rather ask for the raise themselves.
Yeah.
So you have faith in this random human being that knows nothing about your family and knows nothing about your personal life. It does not care about you other than business. You have more faith in them giving you a raise than you learning finance yourself and taking it into your own hands. It's ridiculous. It's ridiculous. It's lazy. It's irresponsible. If you have a family, you're letting everyone down, bro. Like I say this all the time and it's a little bit aggressive, but sometimes it crawls to be aggressive because I'm tired of it. There's people just lazy. You're letting everyone down. You have a brother or sister. You got parents. If you're in poverty, like, do you realize how much of an advantage it is to be in poverty? And to get yourself out of poverty. People don't get that, but the more items you have, the more distractions there is. If you're in poverty, all you have to do is finesse one book, one macroeconomic book, and sit there and dissect it for the next 3 years, and you'll be a genius in macroeconomics. And you'll be able to take any amount of dollar and turn it and multiply it into more. It's a strategic advantage to have nothing. When you have nothing, there's nothing to hold you back. There's no more lower you could go when you're in poverty. Right? There's only up when you're at the bottom. So I say to everybody watching this, like, I hate that excuse. I despise that excuse. It's lazy. God doesn't like lazy people. Like, there's literally no one that likes lazy people. And again, I'm getting a little bit aggressive. Let me calm down a little bit, Johnny. Go ahead and take over. What do you feel about people that say they have an excuse of like, I don't got time?
Well, I mean, if you've made it this far on the podcast, 45 minutes to an hour, then you got time to at least put 45 minutes a day into learning something new.
Yeah.
Like, come on. I mean, some people look at your screen time. What does it say? Probably says around 2 hours or something like that. Like, you guys can totally, and now this goes, you know, to the time management thing, but like, you guys are worth more than that. Like, come on, you guys are spending time watching hours of YouTube and stuff.
Yeah, there's something you can cut off. I always go that route when I say cut off, but really, you don't need it. You can just, like, every time you take a poop, pull out a book, bro. Like, what do you want me to say? Like, you could just be optimized. You could be a whole horrible person and still learn macroeconomics. You can keep all those addictions. I always say it that way, but I think this is a better way because then it makes them feel like there's just literally no excuse.
You know how they say, like, if somebody wants a real change in their life, they have to, like, want it too. Yeah. I guess, what do you say to, like, people who may, like, not know if they want it yet, or, like, you know, it's like, because you want something for somebody else, like, you want people to do good. Let's say you have, like, a family member who, like, is not wanting to improve themselves, but you want them to. Like, can you force them to?
No, you can't force them. You can't force anyone, but you could lead by example.
That's true.
You could try to force them, but from my experience, that is worse.
Testimonials.
Yeah. You could show them things. So, but like screaming at them, like, "Hey, do this thing," like, it's not gonna work. But what you could do is say, "Hey, sister, I made $10,000 off this trade, and I'm about to go buy a pair of shoes." And then they're like, "What? I want a pair of shoes." And then you could, like, show them. You know what I mean?
That's true.
I feel like that's the best way. When you try to force somebody into something, they usually get mad.
They, like, retract from it.
Yeah, they go the opposite way.
Yeah.
I mean, it's kind of weird because I'm, like, screaming at you guys, but you guys are here for a reason. You're here because you want to change. Nobody watched this video for 48 minutes not wanting to change, right? You guys watch this because you want to learn about macroeconomics. You want to learn about money. So I can scream at you.
Yeah. And, you know, for me, it was probably the biggest learning curve trying to learn macroeconomics. But again, like, the main things is just looking at what inflation is doing and what growth is doing. That's what a lot of these macroeconomic experts, you know, look at: growth and inflation. And a lot of people, one of the biggest narratives that I saw that was out there was, oh, deflationary environment is good for, you know, Bitcoin and the stock market. But we've been in kind of a deflationary environment since the peak. I think it was like 9.1% inflation.
Yeah, that was crazy.
But things haven't improved, even though inflation has been going down. So right now is, like, probably the best time in order to double down on your education, because that you can't really spend your money on, you know, other things like assets and risk on things.
Yeah, I mean, if you can't buy assets, buy a book. Like, that's the best investment ever. It's so corny, but it is behind investments. Like, the thing that comes before an investment is knowledge. So knowledge is, like, the key. And then once you get enough knowledge, then your investment starts to do better. So if you actually, that was one of my business models, right? When I was dead broke and a college student trying to make businesses, I knew nothing about business. I was like, you know what? There's one thing I do know. Knowledge is great. Let's make a book business. So I bought a whole bunch of books. I bought a whole library. That's where you see a lot of the books that you see here.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I literally bought boxes of books. I remember you go to Goodwill, and it was something for like 10 cents.
I think the only business I know about yours that you did was the Sheila Jeet stuff.
Yeah, I did a wholesale, it's like mineral supplements. But like, the point I was trying to make is, like, I bought the books because I knew that I could sell the books on eBay, and then also at the second time I knew I could read them too, and then that like really excelled me a lot.
Was that your first business?
Nah, bro, there's no first business. My first business was when I was 14 years old, selling Airheads at school, and then I got banned. I used to bring Airheads, like, I had bring a second bag of Airheads, blow pops. I had everything, and I was selling for like $0.25, 50 cents, and I started booming, bro. I remember I was like 13, 14, and I had like a couple hundred in my bank, and I'm like, yo, freaking out. I'm like, yo, what the heck? And then they started stopping me, and they because I guess you can't sell candy to kids in school. I don't know, bro, but.
Well, I mean, it sounds like you had to give the teachers a cut to continue.
Yeah. I should, bro. That's actually a really good idea. I should have just hit him up and like, I'll shoot you $20.
They were like, all right,
you know what?
Keep going.
All right, cool. Let's do it. Yeah, that's funny. That was probably my first business, but there's been a lot of like flops and like mess ups. And maybe I could just talk about that, and then we'll kind of end this podcast getting a little bit long. So
Sure.
yeah, I mean, so for my journey, and maybe you can talk about this a little bit too. For my journey, it's like obviously it's the non-giving up, right? So like pushing through, making businesses, trying things out, never giving up. But that there was a certain point, and this is actually where cryptocurrency started hitting for me, where once you get in that mode of not giving up, there's probably like 5 to 10% of people watching this video that really in their heart actually truly believe that they're never going to give up. Like they know that they're willing, and this is how I was. There's 10% of you. There's only like 1 to 2% that really make it successful, like entrepreneurs and really make money. So I'm speaking to that 10% right now. Now there's 90% of you that think you want it. You think you want it, but you're not willing to give up everything. You're not willing to give up like everything. I was willing to give up everything. I'm talking about living on the street if I had to. Okay. But there's 10% of you that do. You're willing to give up everything. I'm speaking to you. There's a point where that is kind of your foundation when you're going through this. Your foundation is that you will never give up. You are willing to die for it. Okay. Now, there's another layer deep that I don't want you to miss. And if I learned this, I would have probably expedited my process to be making my first million. I would probably cut off at least 1 year to 2 years of my life. There's a point where when you don't give up, you fail a lot. You're failing, like it almost becomes an addiction. Failure becomes an addiction. It's real. So you'll literally like, being that you're so confident that you'll never give up, you won't care, and you're just like thrash through things, right? And you're just like, I'm going to this, that. It's great to not ever give up and have that strength, but what's almost equally as important, I would even go as far as to say equal, is you have to do things to win. You have to be like, all right, I'm never going to give up, but I'm about to do this thing. And when I do it, it's going to be all out. I'm going to do it all out until I win. I'm going to look at the top dog and I'm going to come for his throat and I'm going to win. Those are the two variables. Those are probably the only two things you ever need to make your first million or make whatever. The willingness to never give up, but then to actually want to win and become world-class. Those two things, if you have those two, you got everything. But yeah, is there any thing you want to comment on that?
I mean, that's the same thing that you like teach us as, people who, help run Fundamental Secrets. I mean, you want us to be world-class, right? Yeah. And, those are our, individual struggles that we're dealing with, just like how people may be watching this, like you're struggling to be like that world-class version of yourself. But like, if you just don't give up, like you're not going to have good days every single day. Like as long as you take those bad days and don't give up, like that's the way to do it. That's
all it is, man. Don't give up. Be comfortable in the fact that you'll never give up. Because if you do anything for 3 to 4 years, you'll probably make it. And then obviously try to win, bro. Just do everything with all of your heart and soul, and it will work. I guarantee it. I guarantee it. But yeah, that's pretty much it for this content. You have any final thoughts or anything?
I guess like since we can end it on some macro too, looking at like the next year and a half. Because a lot of people on some of the live streams I do with Marty and stuff, they're like, oh, when do you think Bitcoin's going to come back? That's like the wrong question to ask when. It's more so I'm looking at what type of conditions are going to be met, because nobody knows when. But the conditions that are going to be met is probably when inflation gets back down to the target goal that the Fed keeps, screaming about, which is like 2%, or we get to a point where things actually break and they have to come in and save the day.
Yep.
Right. So, I mean, I don't know when those things are going to happen, but those are like the conditions that I would like to start putting my money, me personally, I can't give financial advice, but like putting my money into risky assets. Yeah. Now, I don't know if that's going to happen for, another 3 months.
All right, I'll give you a date.
Whatever.
2024, bro. 2024.
All right, Alex says 2024. Forget what I just said. It's going to happen in 2024.
No, listen to the conditions. I could be wrong, but my guess is those conditions will be met around the end of 2023, 2024.
Yeah, that's true. 2023 is going to be pretty interesting. So
we'll see.
If you guys are strapped up.
Yeah, strap up, man. Get an extra job, cash flow, get a side hustle. Stop being broke and lazy. Please stop doing that. That's pretty much it for this content. If you like the quality of this content, hit like. If you don't, leave some constructive criticism. Subscribe for more video updates. And like I always say,
if you don't get with it, you'll be left behind.
All right, guys. Catch you in the next video.